Theft by bankers comes in many different shapes and sizes. Today we are going to discuss how the Financial Times is reporting that Greece is ready to implement a bail-in. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. 2013, we saw the bail-in that occurred in Cyprus. Essentially, the bail-in is a way for bankers to excavate a part of every person or a select few people's wealth in order to recapitalize the banks. Why would they do so? Because too much money is leaving the banks. So in order to stop that money from leaving, to recapitalize, they simply forcefully take it out. Now, why aren't these people able to just take their money out before the banks do? Well, of course, they implemented the capital controls, which limits the amount of money that can be taken out. This is what I have been worrying about. This is what I have been warning about now for 2 years. Practically in every single video, I mention this, and it's something that isn't being talked about. I want to get into it right away before I ramble on. Greek banks prepare plan to raid deposits to avert collapse. This is out of the Financial Times. I want to note right off the bat that this is just a report. This is not necessarily happening already, but obviously we want to bring the information out there, and if it turns out to not be true, then at least we knew it was coming. I do believe it's going to happen in every country, but at least we know at this time in advance. And I'll show you why this is very important. Greek banks are preparing contingency plans for a possible bail-in of depositors amid fear the country is heading for financial collapse. Bankers and business people with knowledge of the measures said on Friday. So obviously, this isn't an official government report or anything like that. This is just knowledge behind the scenes information. They're ready to do a bail-in. There's more details on that. Just hang on for a moment. The plans, which call for a, quote, haircut of at least 30% on deposits above €8,000, sketch out an increasingly likely scenario for at least one bank. That's according to the sources here. So you're looking at 30% of the money. Now, many people will say, well, you know what, 30%, it's not that bad. We don't have much in our account anyway. As long as this is willing to stop all of the chaos that's occurring, that's okay. Other people are going to be very upset and they're going to take to the streets. I do believe there will be chaos in the streets regardless of what happens here, because they're pushed to the edge right now. If they vote yes, if they vote no, it doesn't matter. People are going to be very, very upset. Let's move on further down in the same article. It said this. This is just according to an analyst. With few deposits over €100,000 left in the banks after 6 months of capital flight, quote, it makes sense for the banks to consider imposing a haircut on small depositors as part of a recapitalization. It could even be flagged as a one-off tax. Now, remember how many times specifically, and you can quote me on this, I called it a one-off tax. And this is in the bail-in video that I did. I did an entire video about bail-ins. What is a bail-in? And you could see that on my main channel page. If you scroll down to the e-course, actually, if you want to go to themoneygps.com/free e-course, it's right on there for you to see, where I talked all about the bail-ins, showed you the different examples. One country calls it a levy. One country calls it a one-off tax. One country calls it a bail-in regime. That's Canada. They're all different names. It doesn't matter. But I'm using the terminology here, specifically showing you this. This is a warning. One-off tax being used right here. This is, as I said, just an analyst, but it's going to happen. Look at this in my book, The Money GPS. If you haven't read it already, I highly recommend reading William Engdahl's book, Seeds of Destruction. An excellent book. It starts talking about the GMOs and, of course, that sort of thing, but really branches out into the political spectrum and gets into the IMF. Fantastic books. I quoted him in my book, The Money GPS. The debt terms of the IMF were used to force countries to virtually give away their most precious economic assets to foreign interests in order to repay a debt that grew ever larger. This is the exact happening of Greece right now, today. They pay back this money. What happens? More debt appears. That's exactly what has been happening for years. It's going to get worse. You can never pay back a loan fully to the IMF. If you do, things just keep adding up. You have to sell all of your precious assets, and that's the only way this is going to ever work out. Especially if they get themselves into deep trouble along the way. Greece is that situation right now. Spain, Italy, Portugal, you know the story. Let's move on here to Reuters. Greek banks' closures may deplete supermarket shelves. Oh, just another warning from the Money GPS. Called a fearmonger consistently. Whatever, who cares? I don't care. A halt to international payments from Greek banks' accounts is hurting Greek businesses and their foreign partners and threatening supplies of vital goods like food and clothing in the debt-crippled country. Yes, anytime you have a shortage of anything, you're going to have the food riots and the chaos. The store shelves will empty. Today, as it stands, everything is just fine on the stores. But instantly, you could have panic and people go there and empty it out. Well, they're already there grabbing extra goods, as it has been reported, but this could become chaotic very quickly. Many other notes in this article here. I don't have time. I got to move on to this out of the Washington Post. Dueling rallies of tens of thousands of people apiece took over central Athens on Friday evening, with demonstrators making their final push before a referendum on Sunday that has passionately divided this flailing nation between those terrified Greece will lose its place in Europe and other determined to transform the continent at all costs. They're saying, what are we going to do? Are we going to vote a yes or no? And on both sides basically is not looking good for the future of this country right now. They are completely divided. It shows. We'll see what happens on the vote. Perhaps as you're viewing this video, the vote is already taking place. I believe that either way, we're going to have a big problem on our hands. This is out of the Greek news. Leaflet-throwing youths loot Athens supermarket. A group of around 30 people raided a supermarket in Athens neighborhood on Friday, throwing anti-austerity flyers into the air and grabbing food off the shelves. This is going to be a very big problem, widespread problem, not just there. We see looting and riots take place in every country, whether it's for anti-austerity or whether it is basically people in poverty. You will see looting. You will see the store shelves emptying. You're going to see buildings coming down and being destroyed, essentially, and you will have police on the streets. You'll have the militarized police. They get out there and they have been training and waiting for this moment to happen, and they are just itching to get their boots and stomp on a few skulls. So trust me, they're waiting. This is out of the same Greek newspaper, basically saying that the Financial Times reported on Friday that Greek banks were preparing contingency plans for a possible haircut on deposits amid fears of financial collapse. But the report said, the country's banking association said, it was completely baseless. So this is the other side. Remember, I'm not just showing you one side. I always try to bring out every detail here. This is not just, I'm telling you that this is bail-in is going to happen tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying at all. They're saying it's completely baseless. But I'll bring some information to you in just a moment. Greek leaders have been repeatedly dismissed the possibility that they will have a bail-in depositors to prevent the collapse of the banking system. So right off the bat, they are saying right here, no, it's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. Don't panic. That's their view. But check this out. If we flip back in the pages of history, something that the mainstream media will never do, and the alternative news 99% of the time will never show you the facts. Here we go, February 12th, 2013. We're talking about this article that is entitled, "There'll be no bail-in in the bailout, says Cyprus." The Cyprus finance minister said he would not accept a bail-in under any circumstances. That's February, and basically days later, the bail-in occurred. That's 2013. It wasn't that long ago. It's not much of a difference from what happened in Greece here. Yes, they're a smaller country, but it's the exact same situation. Debt-ridden country, they have a big problem, they call a bank holiday, they have a bail-in, and everyone basically gets screwed over. Yes, it was a select few people, but does anybody believe that this isn't going to spread, that the dominoes aren't going to fall? I've been warning about this as often as I possibly can. This is very serious, and you need to understand that this is going to be enacted in every single country. In that video I did about bail-ins, which you can check out, like I said, at the free e-course, themoneygps.com/free e-course, I explained specifically that this is occurring with all of the G20 nations and more, where they set up in Brisbane, Australia, And basically they went there and they said, okay, we're going to have to implement bail-ins in all of our countries. Let's do it. Let's just get this done. We'll enact the laws. And a lot of times it's not even laws. It's simply just written into their action plans. Like, for example, in Canada, I brought that information out as well. And you can see that every single country, while they do call it a different term, they say, yes, we're going to implement the bail-in. They don't necessarily all use the same term because, of course, then it's a global program. That's global governance. That's not what they want to do. They want to implement this on their own terms, but it is the exact same fact. Yes, you can read the way they try to purport the idea. Oh, no, we had these special funds set up. We're just going to take from that. We're not going to take from the depositors. But guess what? It happened in Cyprus. They took from depositors. Even if it's a select group of people, it doesn't matter. They'll do it once. They set the precedent to do it over and over again. And yeah, it'll be the first time will be, people who earn over $100,000. Next thing you know, it's going to be your retirement account. Replace that retirement account with government bonds, useless garbage government bonds. They could do anything with this. Let me move on to this here as we look at this Bloomberg article from 2013. European governments vowed that the swoop on bank accounts on finance Cyprus aid package won't set a precedent for future rescues. Of course, essentially saying that don't worry about it. We just did this one time. We're not going to have to do it ever again. The Cypriot program is not a template, but measures are tailor-made to the very exceptional Cypriot situation. They're saying, as I said, don't worry, just one time, a one-off situation, and this is never going to happen again. Yet the G20 nations set up in Brisbane to make it a global policy. This is going to happen whether it's in Greece or in Spain or in Italy or wherever you're from. It's going to become implemented there. Last but not least, just wanted to get into this info out of the Telegraph. EU Parliament President, Greece will collapse without fresh aid. So if they're going to go ahead and disagree to this vote, we're going to have a big problem. I believe either way we're going to have a big problem. We'll have to see where this all goes. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Very important that this information gets out there and we understand the severity of the bail-ins and how they will be implemented in every country around the world. Last but not least, if you found my video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. And you can actually flip through the book if you go over to the Amazon, and it has the look inside feature that allows you to flip through the book and see if you like it from there. Take care.